Welcome to Unlocking Potential's Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. I'm your host, Alex Trader with IoT Media and Entertainment. And today we have a killer show for you as I'm joined with Tom Snyder from RIoT, Raleigh IoT. Enjoy this episode as we chat about Tom's past experiences, how RIoT came to be, what they do, and where they're looking to go in the future. So sit back, grab a coffee, water, bottle or beer, and enjoy this very first episode of Unlocking Potential's Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. Cheers. I think we're recording now. Perfect. Awesome. Tom, thank you so much for just taking some time out of your insanely busy schedule and joining me. Drinks at the Forefront of IoT is, what we're doing here. Virtual happy hour with movers and shakers that are in the IoT space. You guys and what you're doing at RIoT certainly fit into that category. Before we go in, and I want to hear about your past and what, how this idea even came to life, what you started on way back when. We got to share a drink, right? It's kind of the purpose of this. So I know I'm going to let you talk about some of the stuff that you've got, because I don't even know, is it out there? Like, is this stuff accessible to everybody, or you got some secret sauce in front of you right now?
Yeah. So for the audience, I'm Tom Snyder. I lead RIoT. We are an economic development organization, but one of the really fun things that I get to do is that we run a startup accelerator in a few cities. And when you reached out to me about this concept, I got really excited because in our very first cohort of RIoT, a number of years back now, we had a company called Ava Labs that came through, and they have developed like IoT enabled smart distilling equipment. And their whole goal is to take, if you like your brown liquors, your bourbons, your whiskeys,
a lot of us do,
dark rums and things, distillers, when those come out, I got some share, this is what a whiskey looks like when it first gets distilled, right? Yep. You want to drink that? That doesn't look good, right? But it goes in that barrel, and a few years later, you've got that great aroma, that good, flavor, good mouthfeel, all these things.
You get the brown stuff right after that. You get the brown stuff.
So I'm plugging Ava Labs tonight. I recommend, if anybody's, craft distiller, micro distiller, you're on a contract distiller, whatever it is, they've got this cool tech that can take that total process from, a 4-year aging, say, down to under a week. Which is amazing. So they give me a bunch of samples. I got my beaker, so I can be scientific here with a glass of ice cube in it. And so the first one I think I'm going to try is a fairly traditional rye whiskey. So it went from this clear unfinished to finished. Now my understanding is to call it a whiskey, you got to put in a barrel for at least a week, or legally you can't call it a whiskey. So it was in a traditional barrel for about a week. Then it went into Ava Labs gear. There's no additives, no chemicals. This is just, it's the same kind of wood that's in the barrel, just, chipped up and put into a little different form. And then they do interesting things with science that I can't disclose. And out comes this nice 96 proof rye whiskey. And their deal is because this took 6 days after that 1 week of brewing, they can help craft distillers to do small batch products. You want to do like a special thing for St. Patrick's Day, or for a wedding, or you can do all kinds of really experimental stuff. And so I've got that, and then the other one I'm going to try is a rum that they've made. And what they're trying to do, they've got a client that wanted a whiskey drinker's rum. So they're trying to develop a product that's got some of the same kind of flavors and tannins and other kind of things that you might have in one of these.
That's intriguing, because I like rum and I like whiskey, but I couldn't picture the two of them together.
We'll see. They've given me a couple other things too. There's a ginger sage whiskey that they made for another client that just has slices of ginger and some sage leaves in it and nothing else, but they've gotten some of those flavors. So they do all kinds of cool stuff. But anyway,
I'd be curious to see how it stacks up in taste, in flavor, to something that's been aged for, 9 years or 6 years or something like that.
Okay, coming through our accelerator, they did some blind taste tests with us, and
you couldn't tell.
I'm not I don't know what the whiskey name for like a sommelier is or something. But what I'm not one of those experts, but I like some things. And so
Yeah.
let me give this one a try, and I'll tell you if it tastes.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And while you're pouring that out, I couldn't decide, man. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to do Scotch or whiskey and or Scotch or bourbon. So I've got a little bit of both up here. I've got some Colonel E.H. Taylor, which thank you, Ray Ortiz from Dallas. This was a gift from him, which is an impossibly difficult bottle to find. This is one of their bottle and bonds. And then I've got some of my favorite scotches here. I've got a good Talisker 10, and then I've got a Arbelor. And I mean, I'm partial to, I like all brown liquor, but I really kind of lean towards the Scotch, just because of the complexity, the peat and the smoke and the sweet, and it adds a little bit more, at least to my palate. And I went from absolutely hating Scotch to now give me the really, really smoky stuff, and I'll enjoy it and be able to pull apart flavors. Of course, I've been smoking cigars for the last 12 to 15 years, so that helps too in trying to pull out different things in what you're smoking or drinking or eating. So,
yeah.
But I think I'm going to start with this E.H. Taylor.
All right.
And go from there. So, and Tom, when you do get a little bit of that on your lips, let us know.
Cheers.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
Cheers, buddy.
Camera cheers here.
Yep,
Right?
there we go.
All right.
Oh man, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
But does it have much of a bite? I mean, at 96%,
Nice. 96 proof.
Yeah. 96 proof.
Yeah, 96 proof. Yeah, it's got.
Yeah, you don't want percent, it'd be like
all the bite you need.
Yeah.
It's no, it's nice. It's nice.
It's awesome, man. I'll have to take a trip down there and try some. I know you can't ship any up here to PA because of those laws and stuff. Even though the Whiskey Rebellion did start in Washington, Pennsylvania here, like 20 minutes away from where I'm at. So
really nice. Well, I'll tell them, once this posts, I'll tell them to go and put in the comments stream where these products can be bought. I
absolutely
can't disclose their clients, but they can choose how to promote that. So
yeah, man, that'd be awesome. Cool. So let's kind of dig into the IoT stuff here. So RIoT. Give me a broad picture of the types of things that you guys do, and then where did this idea come from? How did this whole thing get started with you? What are your experiences? Right, where did you come from?
Yeah, so my background, I'm an engineer by classical training, and the first part of my career I was in electronics product development. I kind of rode the wave of, from analog radios to digital, and how it created the smartphone and the internet in your pocket and all this fun stuff. And so I spent the first, 20 or so years of my career working in consumer electronics and cellular communications, and had a blast, but got to a point where I was just ready to do something different. And I wasn't sure what that was, but discovered this entrepreneurship space and have just loved it. There's a lot of stuff early in my career. There was this fundamental shift from analog to digital, and and this thing called the ARPANET that then became the internet, and all this stuff came along, and it was just unlocked the creativity of doing things in a new way. And I see that same opportunity now in IoT, that we've got incredibly low cost compute that allows us to do like authentic AI and machine learning, and we've got incredibly low cost wireless connectivity that lets us move data from anywhere to anywhere, whether you process in the cloud or out at the edge or whatever, So, and then we've got these advances in semiconductor technologies that have made sensors dirt cheap. So when you can collect data from anywhere, because you've got these dirt cheap, tiny sensors that are so small that many of them can, harvest energy from the environment around them and be self-powered, and you don't have to worry too much about batteries. That's still an issue in some use cases, but it's starting to solve itself as we get better at energy harvesting. I can now collect data from anywhere. I can move it to anywhere. I can process it. I can do all this stuff for almost no money. I just thought this is the next wave of just fun stuff, and what better way to be involved in that than in the entrepreneurial community. So RIoT just started as a meetup group. We were initially the Raleigh Internet of Things meetup. That's where RIoT came from. And we just started getting people together to talk about this interesting topic. And what was interesting, I'm based in Research Triangle, and for those that may may or may not know, that's kind of been a big tech hub in the East Coast. It's some people call it the Silicon Valley of the East. I tend to think we're different than Silicon Valley, but anyway, that's another discussion. And folks just started coming from all of these companies that are like the household names of tech. And you'd think like they're coming to teach, but they were coming to our meetup to, hey, yeah, we know something cool is going on. What should we be doing, right?
Wow.
So we saw a market need and stood up a nonprofit to help, just to say, how can we take the collective intelligence of a whole consortium of different experts? We've got about 100 corporate partners that are part of our organization now. They are help to fund us to hold events and conferences and workshops and teach classes and do things to connect people to each other in a very human way, which we did in person for a long time, and we've been doing virtually until recently. And then entrepreneurs started coming and asking for help, and we launched a startup accelerator to start getting hands-on and trying to shape some companies and create jobs in this new economy. And it's been a ton of fun.
That's crazy. So how long has RIoT been around?
We formed the organization in 2014.
Okay. So fairly new by standards. Yeah. No, that's incredible, man. It's crazy the types of things that can really come out of like meetup groups, right? You get together over one central theme, right? And you build these relationships, and then things kind of snowball, right? They just explode from there. And I think sometimes like us founders in these certain things, like we have this idea and this vision of where we would like to take things, but ultimately like you just kind of hop on the train and it's going. You have no idea where it's going. You just know it's moving and you're along for the ride, right? The railroad's been built.
Yeah. And our goal is to, lay more and more tracks so others can follow. Not everybody's out there building the railroad, but some innovators are, and we want to be a part of that. But we want to make it as accessible a railroad as possible so everybody can participate, because every industry is getting impacted by going from the information age where you had information at your fingertips, but it had already been processed and had to be cataloged and web crawled and so on, to now we're talking, this is all real time, right? The instant you collect some data, you can edge process it, you can do something, and we're automating our lives, right? We'll have wearables that will immediately detect a health issue and create a response. We're going to have cars that are going to, avoid obstacles as they drive themselves. Everything's going to be automated. And, one day we're going to think back to, we're going to tell our kids, hey, guess what? We used to use these maps, but you couldn't see the traffic on them. They were just maps, and we're going to expect everything to be real time all the time, right?
Yeah, I still remember printing out MapQuest directions on our gateway computer, back in the mid 90s and circling like, make sure you don't miss this exit. And then we like even the traffic, like I remember back then you could print it out and it would tell you the traffic, but by the time you actually get to the spot where the traffic is, it would be better or worse. Like, it was just crazy, man. Just a different era. That's wild. So talk to me specifically about Raleigh, because I mean, up here in Pittsburgh, I know that we've heard the buzz about Raleigh. In the tech space, I think people have heard of, if you're in the tech ecosystem, the Research Triangle, but what's the draw? Like, why the Research Triangle? What's happening down there that's really just over the last, 7 to 10 years or less, has just exploded and brought a lot of these companies in and created such a robust startup ecosystem?
It's an interesting question. I moved here, so I'm not from here. I'm from New York originally, and actually grew up in Harrisburg, so not too far from you.
There you go.
I love Pennsylvania, and although I will admit I'm more Eagles, Phillies than I am Pirates and Steelers. Sorry about that, but
all right, we got to shut this down now.
That's right. But, no, it's a great location. Research Triangle was formed back in I should know this exactly. I think it's the early 60s as a spot that is between Raleigh and Durham and Chapel Hill. So that's the triangle of Research Triangle, is these three spots that are anchored by Duke University in Durham and University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill and NC State in Raleigh. And what was interesting is all three of those programs have engineering, but then you also had a lot of strength in, medicine and law and other things. And, engineering was maybe the bigger focus at NC State, but then agriculture and life sciences. And so you had this real diversity of research that's happening.
Yeah.
Tied to kind of engineering at each of those. And the thought was to put acres and acres of land right beside the airport and right kind of in the middle of all three of these cities that would create an opportunity to launch the next economy. And at the early stages of RTP, quite honestly, a lot of it was focused on this being the center of the semiconductor world, because at that time in the 60s, early 70s, that was recognized as going to be the future. And you could argue maybe Silicon Valley had more successes out of that specific space, but it built a foundation here where you had huge employers that were anchored and are still anchored in that space, and that brought investment capital and stuff from the private sector that was tied to this talent from these universities and in many smaller schools and other things in the area. So I think that foundation actually was quite from earlier in our history, if you will. Yeah. But you're right. In the last decade, things have exploded, and I think the biggest reason that I attribute that to is diversity. We have a huge diversity of industry and of skill types, and it's a very welcoming area to somebody that maybe worked in med devices their whole career, jumping over and doing something in ag tech, and somebody in ag tech going over and working in industrial application or in smart transportation. Like, people kind of not just move from one company to another, but they actually change sectors here in a way that I think creates new ideas and things, which is cool. There has been a lot of, I'll call it immigration into the region, not necessarily in a traditional sense of international immigration, although there is that, but also immigration from other parts of the country, because there's a pretty good cost of living. We're a couple hours to the beach, or a couple hours to the mountains. There's, great music. It's really become a food region. We have, it's Mecca for college basketball, if you're a fan of that. There's lots of sports. So people come here for quality of life and tend to just never leave. Yeah, man, that's absolutely insane. It's we see that. We've started seeing that a lot with Pittsburgh over the last few years. I mean, I grew up about an hour south of here. I actually grew up across the street from old coke ovens in a mining community called a patch. Okay. And it's a series of duplexes. And I mean, I grew up with the walls were so paper thin that our neighbor, when I was young, she was pregnant with a baby, and I could hear her throwing up in the middle of the night, just because like our bathrooms were literally attached by like a couple of sheets of, drywall. It was crazy. Yeah. And, being from an area that was so kind of blue collar, focused on mining and focused on that whole industry, mining, manufacturing, to see like what's happened to Pittsburgh over the last 5 to 10 years, and just this, I call it the technological renaissance that we've had in our area. I mean, it's just been this explosion, and similar to what you guys have experienced in Raleigh, low cost of living, right? Incredible, you get bang for your buck whenever you're buying a home. You get a yard. Like, people on the West Coast don't get that. You can't drive out 20 minutes in LA and go and see pastures and see farms and see rolling hills and in Pittsburgh. And it's probably similar down there. You drive 20 minutes outside of any direction, and you've got trees, you've got space, you've got land. Like, you get that breath of fresh air. And I think there's a lot to be said about what's happening now, especially over the last 14 months of what we've experienced with COVID. And people really understanding like the work from home, and let's get out of that rat race, and let's actually go and let's experience nature. Why are we spending $2 million on a home that we could get for $300,000? Right? I totally agree. And for full disclosure, I mean, we've looked pretty seriously at Pittsburgh as a potential expansion location. We've expanded up into Virginia, a couple of cities in North Carolina, recently out to Colorado. And we've had quite a few discussions in your area, because I think all the ingredients are there, and you've got great tier 1 research coming out of CMU and out of Pitt. It's incredible. You've got even Penn State and Kensington. There's a lot of things are happening there. There's a lot of industry, and you're right. A number of Silicon Valley folks, particularly folks that are looking in autonomous vehicles and robotics and other things, have picked Pittsburgh, and I think it's a great decision. You're in a good spot, my friend.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. It's incredible. My heart and my passion is Pittsburgh. I am a Pittsburgh fan. I'm a Steelers fan. I'm a Penguins fan. I'm a Pirates fan, as much as it pains me to say. But, I bleed black and gold. I lived in Dallas for a period of time, Boston for a period of time. And every time I left Pittsburgh, I always found myself drawn back home. And it's an absolutely incredible city. So I love hearing when I left for Dallas, it was in a period of time where, it was just starting to happen. And I kind of tripped into technology when I was in Dallas working for a VAR, a value-added reseller down there, literally drinking from the fire hose of servers, network, and storage. I mean, I could build relationships. Like, I cut my sales teeth walking down the streets of small coal mining towns here in Pittsburgh selling insurance, like having a binder, knocking on doors at dinner time. Hey, you got 5 minutes. I still remember the pitch, and I'll spare everybody the pitch, but I still remember the pitch, the 5-second pitch.
Yeah.
To get in there, and tripped into it. And as I was in technology in Dallas, started hearing like Pittsburgh, top 10 places to live for technology. And I'm like I'm calling my family, like, what the heck's going on back home? Like, what is this? This is a place where you would literally grow up and you would leave. Like, you would go, you get your degree at CMU or Pitt or IUP, and you would be gone, or Penn State, and you'd be gone, right? Yeah. And it's transitioned over just the last 5 to 7 years to this place where we're finally seeing this influx of people come in, and it's exciting.
And I think it's based on entrepreneurship. It's an investment in downtown, kind of bringing people back into the center, and this excitement about building something new. It wasn't big game hunting, to my understanding, of like just hey, can we go land the next HQ2 from Amazon or something? It's about growing something that's important, and I think the region's done well. But if you come visit Raleigh, I do know a place I can take you to go get some Iron City beer.
You know what? I'm actually not a fan of Iron City beer. Okay. I'd rather have some of the craft stuff. No offense, any Iron City lovers that are listening to this. It's just, listen, guys, it's not good. Go get other beer.
It's an old Steelers tailgating standby, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's funny. So you mentioned in New Kensington. I had an interesting conversation the other day with Steve and Sherry out there, and they mentioned you, and that you guys were talking. They're actually going to participate on the Webcast in December and talk about some of the cool things that they're doing.
They have a cool initiative they're working on to serve this IoT audience directly. So definitely. If you're listening and have a way you can contribute or want to learn more, I'd advise reaching out to them. I think they've got some cool ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So all right, we've talked about you. We've talked about your past a little bit. I want to dig into that just a little bit. Like, when you started the group, did you ever dream that it would get this big? How many folks do you have within the network at this point in time?
Yeah. So to be clear too, when it was originally myself and 2 other guys that were involved. Sure. So I don't want to take all the credit for that. Okay. I'm the only one left, but no, I mean, it started as a meetup. It was an interesting thing, right? I had my day job. I was supporting pretty interesting, like, building block research of IoT at NC State University, and actually worked with Penn State and a few other schools in your area. My other co-founders had their own kind of things going on, but it took off and it went a little bit viral. Did we think, hey, this is eventually going to be, 100 sponsors and between our group and we have another part of our organization that is focused on wireless research and wireless testing and stuff. Our organization is 30 plus people now, and we got employees in 6 or 8 states, and didn't picture that future, but now that it's we're where we are now, we absolutely can picture in the future our RIoT labs and our accelerator in cities across the U.S. and in Europe and South America, and so we're on the way, and we'd love to meet some more partners that want to go on this journey with us.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Talk to me. Did you have a holy crap moment? Like where you were like, this is unbelievable. Like I can't even, the fact that this is happening is just crazy.
I think for me, it might have been a few years in when I started seeing people around town wearing RIoT t-shirts. And I thought, like, sometimes, we printed some shirts and we'd like throw them out into the crowd at our events. You get a few hundred people out to an event. So, it's fun. You're standing on stage and, ask a question, we'll throw you a t-shirt kind of thing, and people actually started wearing them. It's like, oh, that's cool,
It's awesome, man. That's got to be a great feeling. It's got to be kind of weird. Like they say, I think I've heard folks talk about when you become famous and you have that moment of whenever you kind of go out there. I believe I heard it Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. I recently listened to that. Fantastic book. If you haven't checked it out, listening to him read it, it's incredible. But he talks about the moment when he started noticing people noticing him while he was out, and it's got to be something similar to that, right?
I think it was interesting because that was the point maybe where that helped solidify maybe in just a kind of a weird way that this is a real company, we're making real impact, and that's cool. But then stuff I never would think would happen. For example, I got invited to go out to Slovenia and to meet with the prime minister and a few of his representatives. Wow. To be fair, the prime minister part was 45 seconds or so, but then his team to help them think through the strategy of the country on deployment of 5G and broadband as a foundation for entrepreneurship and essentially their economy going forward. And
wow.
Well, this is interesting.
You're like, hey, how did I end up here?
Country, right? But so it's been really cool. I've been down to Buenos Aires and around all kinds of places, and everybody understands IoT is not. It's not just a buzzword. In fact, IoT is a buzzword. It's going away. We're not even using that term very much anymore. But this transformation from information to real-time data and automation, every place in the world, every industry vertical must make this change. It's going to be forced on you by the technology. And so to have the opportunity to just do whatever we can to help in our small way is really gratifying.
Man, that's incredible. It's the old adapt or die, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where a lot of these companies are.
No question. Yeah.
That's kind of wild. That's wild. So talk to me a little bit. You alluded to it. You said full disclosure, and this will be disclosed everywhere that anybody wants to send it to. Yeah. But you mentioned Pittsburgh. But what is the future for RIoT? You said you've got 6 employees in 6 different states. Like where are you guys looking to take this thing? What's next?
Yeah, so right now we're running accelerator programs in 2 cities in North Carolina. By the end of this year, we'll be running up in the Richmond, DC corridor up in Virginia. And by Q4 or Q1 next year, we anticipate to be operating in the Denver Boulder corridor in Colorado. So we've got employees kind of in those spaces. The Wireless Research Center side of our business, which is a kind of world-class test laboratory and engineering services organization that serves the fact that in order to connect all the things to the internet to collect all this data, they all have an antenna. They all get connected in some way. That facility is in Wake Forest, North Carolina. We've got 20 or 25 people there. I think kind of our plan is to continue to go particularly to underserved communities. We're not looking to expand to New York or to Beijing or to Boston or places that have lots and lots of resources. We're looking at kind of those more mid-market cities that have great assets, but maybe don't have everything that we can help to bring together in terms of providing on-site mentoring, coaching, curriculum things. Our accelerator, which is an equity-free program. Again, we're trying to create jobs, but then to connect those communities into this global network of semiconductor companies and cloud analytics companies and on and on and on. So I expect, we'll keep adding 2 to 3 cities per year throughout the U.S. That are, anchored, with some general support from our headquarters here in Raleigh. Yeah. And then my hope is maybe not next year, but the year after to start doing the same thing in in the other continents.
Man, that's crazy. Absolutely insane. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about really helping kind of the folks that are looking for jobs within the field. Are you guys partnered with any like boot camps or, those types of organizations that are helping people kind of transition, right, from, different industries, different jobs into technology, specifically around IoT? Because we talk about, being with a company called TrueFit, right? We're a software development shop here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
There's lots of software boot camps that are out there, right? We've got Tech Elevator, we've got Academy PGH here in Pittsburgh. We've got a couple of others in our region, right? Hack Reactor is a large national one. But are you guys doing anything like that specifically focused towards connected technologies and IoT?
So here's the great thing about running a nonprofit is that we can collaborate with everybody. We don't really worry about competitors at all. In my opinion, our goal is creating jobs and creating good jobs, because they're new tech jobs, which are the best paying jobs, are the most future proof. And so if that job gets created, maybe because of something we did, that's fantastic. But if it's created by something a partner of ours did, it still fulfills our nonprofit mission. And so we collaborate with lots of folks in that space, traditional software development firms like yours, and folks that can, provide engineering and software services to young companies, but also everybody needs talent, right?
Yeah.
Any city in America you go to, if you were to look at, the job board of all the companies in that city in aggregate, the number one demand is software developers. Can't find enough of them, right?
Right.
And there's lots of ways to hack your way to a good job and not necessarily have to do $100,000 in debt and a 4-year degree. Code schools, boot camps. There's lots of ways to do it.
Yeah.
And our job is to connect the opportunities to the folks going through those programs, but then also to help them understand that shortcut is great and you can get a lot from an employee from one of those programs, but you need to go in with eyes wide open to, where they're at and what they can contribute on immediately and how you support that person coming out of the boot camp to be successful, right? You don't drop that person onto $100 million client's account with no support from day one, right?
Yeah.
You find a way to put the right support around them. And so we help to, kind of liaise and make sure that things are set up well for success for everybody involved.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. So I'm gonna pause here, and I want to hear, after, what are we in, 30 minutes of drinking your drink and having that, what are your thoughts on it now, 30 minutes in? On the rye that you're drinking.
I got one more sip left, and I was actually just thinking that it's time to crack this rum and give it a shot. So what do you say? Should we?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I just poured some Aberlour 12. I know it's like the unforgivable sin to go from bourbon to scotch in the same glass, but
yeah. Well,
everybody will have to forgive me for.
and I'm drinking with some ice here, so some people are curious on doing something neat, but.
Hey, you know what? There is a thing to be said about that. The ice, it actually opens up. It cuts the alcohol and it opens up the flavor profile and the aroma of the whiskey. I usually, like, if I'm trying a new bottle that I've never had before, I will do it neat first, and then depending on the bite and where I'm at, what I'm feeling that day, I'll do a couple of literally I'll wet my fingers and splash water in. Or I'll do a cube. It depends. So I'm somewhat of I guess I'm not a purist since I did them both in the same glass, but I've been around it enough to know the etiquette.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. And in the right scenario, happy to follow the etiquette, but I'm also kind of, I wanted something that was enjoyable. And also with the ice, like if I'm having something neat, I tend to like to really sip and savor it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I want to plug these guys, Ava Labs.
Yeah.
And so I want to try multiple of the things. And if I have ice in it, I'll drink it a little more quickly.
Yeah. It's hard to sip and savor whenever you're doing something like this too.
That's right.
Oh.
So here's the rum. You can see a little bit of the coloration there. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers.
See how the whiskey drinker's rum is.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm going to wait for you to tell me how this tastes.
That's interesting. It's It's got a little bit of smokiness to it in a way that you wouldn't expect out of a rum, for sure. Right. But it still has some of that rum sweetness, of course.
Is it more comparable to a Scotch than it is to a bourbon with the smoke?
Yeah, I would say I think it is.
Oh, it's like a peated rum.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's pretty sweet for Scotch, but
sure.
But it's yeah, I feel that it's more Scotch forward than it is whiskey forward, actually.
Well, that's it. Listen, if the guys at Ava Labs, if you guys are watching this, I need to get my hands on some of this. So we'll have a conversation, and
I'll introduce you after the show.
Okay, all right, I appreciate it, man.
So we haven't heard about what you're drinking there. What's your opinion of your drink?
Oh man, well, so
you had to wear a bottle a minute ago. I forget what it was, but
this is the E.H. Taylor. That's the first one that I had. It's great, man. I mean, like I said, it's a very difficult bottle to find. I don't know what's happened in the whiskey world that has made some of these bottles that used to be readily available so difficult to find. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Eagle Rare that is like the $30. It goes for like $100 on the secondary market because it's just ridiculous to find. I mean, they're great whiskeys, but like there's a lot of really great whiskeys that you can readily go into a liquor store and find on the shelf and grab a bottle and go home and enjoy it rather than doing the hunt. Some people get into that. This was one that a buddy of mine down in Dallas found for me, and I asked him to keep an eye out for it. It's good. It's 50%, 100 proof, so it does pack a punch. It's sweet, and it's a great sipping whiskey. This one's great to sip with like a cigar or something because you're actually going to taste it. My go-to Scotch lately has really been this Abelard 12-year. It's in sherry casks, so it's got that sweetness. It's got a little bit of the smoke, but it's not really overpowering. Like if somebody is a bourbon drinker and they're looking to like kind of dabble in the world of Scotch, they're looking for like that entry Scotch. This is a fantastic bottle for that. I mean, this is just a great bottle. And then I've got the Talisker here, which will be next if we get to it. But this is actually from the Isle of Skye. And they've got on the bottom of the bottle made by the sea. So you can actually taste, they call it maritime. So I compare this to like a salted pretzel. So you're going to get the sweetness, you're going to get the smoke, and then you're going to get this little bit of saltiness because of the amount of time that it's aged by the sea, and it gets that salt and that ocean air in it. It is fantastic. Have you ever had Talisker?
I've had it, but I've only had it in a like a dinner or a restaurant setting where there's
food and stuff. You can't really focus on the Sky.
Yeah. So I need to get a bottle where I can have a pure experience at home and
grab a bottle, man. If you have experience in drinking, to like just have something that's unique, something that's a little bit different.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Now it's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that story about Eagle Rare because that's one I get pretty regularly, and I don't know if it's a regional thing. I can't say over the last 6 months or something, but I feel like I can just go right down to the ABC store and pick up a bottle of that without any trouble.
See, that's crazy, man. And in PA, it flies off the shelf before it even makes it to the shelf. E.H. Taylor's the same way. I mean, Blanton's is impossible to find.
Oh, we can get Blanton's down here too.
Well, we're going to have a conversation offline, man. when the Ava Lab sends me a little bit, we can work something out.
There we go.
That's funny, man. Cool. So let me ask you this. So kind of circling back into the technology piece. And really not technology, but more you. What is a piece of advice that knowing what you know now and being you're 7 years into this now? I did my math. Yeah, I did my math right. Yay. So you're 7 years into this now. I'm impressed with myself on that after two scotches or two whiskeys. 7 years into this now. What's a piece of advice that you would have given your younger self either right before starting this venture with RIoT or even go way back to the beginning, like where to focus your time, efforts, energy? What's a piece of advice that you would give yourself, your past self?
So maybe I'm going to cheat on the answer here. I'm going to give a piece of
cheat away
advice that somebody gave me at the beginning that I took.
Okay.
It was one of the most impactful pieces of advice I ever got. But, early in my career, somebody told me that the success over an entire career has way more to do with the network you build than necessarily being an expert in a certain skill set or whatever. And so I remember it was maybe 2 or 3 years into my career, and I'm sitting down with my manager. I'm in a big corporate, performance review setting and figuring out, what are my goals for the year and how am I going to be my performance be measured and stuff. And I set a goal. I said, you know what, I'm going to, keep a spreadsheet, and every week I'm going to try and have lunch with somebody I've never had lunch with before. So over the course of a year, I'll have 50 lunches with 50 different people that I've never had lunch with before. And I'm in a big company. I was on a corporate campus that had 1,400 people on it or something. So there are plenty of people to pick from, right? But I did that, and it was it takes a little bit of courage maybe to walk up to somebody's cube and say, hey, I saw you in a meeting the other day. I'd love to get to know you. You want to grab some lunch? But we got a corporate cafeteria. It's not that hard to do, and it was one of the most impactful things I ever did, because all of a sudden I had a better appreciation as an engineer of, oh, that's what the sales organization does, or that's what product management is. And, and you start to, meet people, and through relationships, you build trust and you build allies. And, it got to a point where whenever I needed something, I knew somebody to go to, maybe not to get what I needed directly, but to get connected to what I needed. Yeah. And so just, putting yourself out there, doing this with folks, just getting to know people, and the piece of advice that I didn't know at the time that I would advise now, maybe to answer your question directly, is in the first week of our accelerator, we talked to teams about that you have 3 currencies that you have to manage as a founder. You got to manage your cash, and you want a surplus because you need extra, you need a rainy day fund for what you're not anticipating. Yeah. You got to manage your time, and you want a surplus because you never know what's going to happen. So, if you have extra time, you can handle it. But your relationship capital is maybe the most important currency that you need to manage. And that's the one you need to run a deficit. So the advice would be, in every relationship, find a way to help somebody first, and help them as much as you can, so that then sometime down the road, if you need help, you can go to somebody you've built trust already. They might be able to help you out. And don't do it just to bank those, to cash in later. Do it to actually help them. And if you lead with help, you'll be fine. Your whole career, you'll be fine. You'll always have a job. You'll always have a place to sleep. You'll have whatever it is that you need. It's a mindset game, isn't it? Right? It's a mindset and a heart game. Like you got to have your head in the right place for that. And you got to know that, the world's big, and we're all in it. And if you're going to be a lone wolf in that world, you're not going to survive. But if you're part of the community, you'll be fine. I mean, I've said this multiple times, and it's weird that you say, it honestly, what you've said, both of those examples that you gave, both of those pieces of advice are things that I'm super passionate about and try to do intrinsically on my own. But I've said multiple times over the last couple of months, people that were singularly focused and selfish with time and energy prior to the pandemic were in a much worse place than those of us that were already doing that prior to the pandemic, because the network of individuals, we're all trying to get to the same place, right? We're all trying to make it. We're all trying to succeed. And if you can do something to help those that are around you, whether they're friends, whether they're family, whether they're acquaintances, if you can help them succeed, then it broadens the pool of resources and margin, right? To push you along the way. And those that kind of focused on those relationships prior to the pandemic, I mean, we're in a much better spot, I feel. The other thing they don't tell you is when you behave in that collaborative way, it's just more fun. It really is. You're doing business with people. You get to do that stuff, man. Right? I mean, that's where this whole thing spun out of is doing something like that, right? This isn't for me. This is, I want folks that I have onto this thing to talk about the cool stuff that they're doing. Nobody cares about what I'm doing. I'm not going down and meeting with Slovenia's prime minister talking about the stuff that you're talking about. You know what I mean? Yeah, but we could flip the interview here. Let me ask you a question. So what's the most interesting or kind of cool thing that you've seen in the IoT space? Have you seen a cool application or what you talk to a lot of folks? What's excited you recently? I'm trying to think about the things that I can even talk about on a recorded conversation here. Right. There is just, for me, I am not an engineer, right? I'm not a tech.
I'm a technologist, I'm a user, right? But I'm a passionate relationship cultivator. And I tripped into this technology space. And by virtue of just my personality, I get sucked into a lot of these conversations, these bleeding edge conversations. We've got a group that we're working with that's partners of ours called Assist. You're probably familiar with those guys.
Yeah, NC State
Assist,
group, right?
NC State, Adam Curry, and those guys. Like the technologies that they're working on for wearable, like energy harvesting type devices, like literally at the bleeding edge of technology. Like we talk about like Apple Watch and Fitbit, and BioStrap is a partner of ours. And we talk about these wearable devices that are tracking our data and they're giving us health stuff. Like these guys, the stuff that they're working on in research and development, like I have to take this thing off. This is the 3rd gen. I have to take this thing off once every 2 days and charge it overnight, or I don't get to use it. Like they're working on things that are going to charge themselves using solar, using motion, using just my body heat, right? Those are probably some of the coolest conversations to be in. Hearing some of the things that are being worked on in that space. Like it's just phenomenal. Like what's happening.
You know, I talked about how antiquated a map might sound. Can you imagine having a conversation, you know, a generation or two from now and say, you know, there was this time in our history where we went to a doctor once or twice a year and they took a couple of measurements and based on like 2 data points per year, they were giving me mission critical advice on my diet or my exercise or what, what Assist is doing is phenomenal where, you know, if you can put a device on and it's embedded into your sock or something, you know, it's like you're just doing your normal routine, but your body's heat is powering persistent 24/7, 365, you know, 4 times a second measurements of all your biometrics and your, your cortisol levels and all this stuff. And now you've got a truly real-time measure of your health. And you're no longer just reactive to a problem, but you're prescriptive to staying healthy, right? It's amazing stuff. I totally agree with you. It's cool research.
Yeah. So those are the things that I get really excited about, you know, just being a part of. And like I said, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I get really jazzed up just by having a seat at the table, being in the room, being the fly on the wall, you know? And so my passion is always, it's relationships. It's anything that I can do to help folks kind of push their needles forward.
Right.
I don't know if it's how I was raised or if it's just this thing that's within me that like just is dying to get out. But I love making quality introductions for people, being like, here, you're doing this cool thing. You're doing this cool thing. Like your things kind of overlap a little bit. You guys may be able to make something amazing together. Go and have at it, you know? So I will, and we'll finish the conversation because we're coming up on an hour here, with this last question. And it feeds into the last comment that I made, with the folks that are within our network and that we're reaching out to, and what we're trying to do. Eric, my business partner, with IoT, media and entertainment, and unlocking potential. What are you guys looking for? How can those that are within our network and those that listen to this, and if you have made it this far, thank you so much. I am eternally grateful. Amazing if you made it this far, but if you have, Tom, I want you to kind of share what are some of the things that you guys are in need of right now, some of the introductions, the type of people that you guys are looking to have conversations with to really kind of get to that next level or to push those needles forward for you guys with RIoT.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Alex, and the opportunity to kind of share here. This technology revolution, this data economy that is coming, fourth industrial revolution, whatever you want to call it, it affects every single one of us. And to some degree, every single one of your listeners should be participating in some way. But that's a really intimidating thing to say because, you know, everybody, myself included, are like, okay, wait, like, what do I do? How do I get started? What, you know, so really what we want to do first and foremost is just make sure everyone feels like there's an opportunity to be included. And that's why everything we do is free open to the public. Startups we work with, we're not investors. We're not taking any equity in your company. We're not trying to own your intellectual property. We're here as a free resource. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a startup, if you're in a corporate role looking to, say, hey, my company needs to shift to where the market's going. I need to understand how to do this technology transformation, and take, advantage of new opportunities. Just reach out to us. You can find us at riot.org. Email me at tom@riot.org. Reach out. We would love to talk to any entrepreneurs out there. If you want to help be like a big part of the solution for all those entrepreneurs and help grow the next part of the economy, because you have a technology platform, you're a cloud services company, or you're a communications network company, or you're a semiconductors and sensor provider, or you're an engineering services company, or even an attorney or an accountant, or somebody that's helping the business side of launching new ventures. We would love to meet you as well. We have a really simple model where companies join our network, they pay a certain amount of money, and we pool all those funds. So nobody's really having to do a heavy lift financially, but we can pool those resources to provide free services, to the entrepreneurial community. And what happens is those startups, they build trust with you as a corporation or as a municipal government that's trying to create economic growth in your region, wherever it is. By building that trust early on, those companies that grow and succeed, they become really valuable customers to the technology and service providers over time. So we're pipelining and creating a financial ROI back to those sponsors. Yep. Or they become a big part of the tax base and they create a financial ROI back to those communities who are helping to fund us. So not to put too blunt a point on it, but we would love folks that want to help fund the operation and help it to grow. And we are a 501c3. So if you want to do it as a donation, we can give you the write-off. We've never had anybody ask us for that paperwork because we create real value. And
right.
So that's my pitch to end this out. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun, Alex.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. You have christened this maiden voyage. You were the first. This is episode 1 of hopefully many, 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 many. For those out there watching, I'm going to throw this up, Tom, where you can stay here for a little bit. None of this would be possible if it weren't for a couple of close friends of mine, sponsors, folks that are doing cool things. A buddy of mine, Mike Staffy, runs Aaron. It's basically an app that allows you to do employee referrals. So every employee can have the list of jobs that are available for a company in a mobile app. You can easily refer your friends and family, tracks that all the way through. They're doing some more incredible things than that, but check them out. Buddy of mine, Gene at Jet Store, if you need on-prem storage solutions, if you need JBOD, if you need actual drives, if you need some sort of hyper-converged or all-flash storage. Gene's been in the industry for 20 plus years. They call him the czar of storage, which is kind of wild. Another buddy of mine, John from Simwell, they do data simulation. So if anybody out there is looking for, data science, data simulation, specifically focused in the manufacturing space, they're doing some really cool things. And then last but certainly not least, the company that I work for, TrueFit. We were a 25-year-old software product design and development agency here in Pittsburgh, PA. We were building software before software was what everybody was doing. We were building it for the railroads. And then as technology has shifted and pivoted over the years, so have we. So if you've got something from the back of the napkin sketch or design needed all the way through to a commercialized product, whether that be a mobile app or a web platform or some sort of integration, TrueFit is give us a shout. Give me a shout, right? So those are my plugs. Tom, been absolutely fantastic meeting with you, man. Thank you so much thank you for plugging, what is it, Ava Labs?
Ava Labs, AEVA Labs.
AEVA Labs. I cannot wait to try the rum whiskey because that sounds absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining me on this, for sharing a couple of drinks. I hope that it was enjoyable to you. We'll get there. I want to say drinks at the forefront of IoT, and I didn't know how to plug that in right, but there it is. Thanks for joining me on Drinks at the Forefront of IoT, Tom. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to the listeners, and thanks to Ava Labs. This was fantastic.
Hey, cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this very first episode of Drinks at the Forefront of IoT with Tom Snyder. I, for one, had an absolute blast. If you made it all the way through this episode and are still watching and listening, I'm eternally grateful. Please head over to our LinkedIn page and give us a follow to keep up to date on everything that we're doing with IoT Me and Unlocking Potential. And don't forget to like and subscribe at our YouTube channel. Next up will be Ray Edwards, founder and CEO of Puretech. Ray is doing some incredible things in the advanced purification space, and we'll spend some time sharing about his Purenetic product. Anyway, I hope to see you next time on Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon.